As the governor waited to hear from Hendry, a siren blared across downtown Harrisburg.
That siren was like a knife in my chest. It was just, I thought, what on earth? Where did that come from?
Someone had set off Harrisburg's civil defense alarm.
Attention, please. There has been a state of emergency declared on 3 Mile Alley. Please stay indoors with your windows closed. Civil defense is requesting that all personnel...
For residents, life seemed to be imitating art.
All windows and doors closed.
Just 12 days earlier, a Hollywood film called The China Syndrome had been released in theaters across the country, giving Americans their first look at a terrifying nuclear catastrophe.
I don't know. They might have come close to exposing the core.
If that's true, then we came very close to the China Syndrome. The number of people killed would depend on which way the wind is flowing. Render an area the size of Pennsylvania permanently uninhabitable.
It was a beautiful day, a very sunny, bright morning. My windows were open, my phone rang, and my sister wanted to know where I was going. She was calling from LA saying, get out, hurry up and get out. And people around the country were calling and saying, you know, get out of there, hurry up and get out.
Our neighbors told me that I was to come down to their house. They had guns and they had a chainsaw and a big truck, and they would get up on the highway, cut down any barriers that were there and fight their way through, and we would leave any way they pleased. So the idea that there was going to be any kind of an orderly evacuation was pure fantasy.
Thornburg knew he didn't have much time to stem the panic. Shortly after 10 a.m., he finally got some welcome news. The radiation release had been grossly overstated. One critical number had gotten distorted in layers of garbled communications. The explanation did little to calm frayed nerves. The crisis in Pennsylvania had made front-page news around the world. Hundreds of journalists flocked into Harrisburg,
You guys got a match?
including Mike Gray. An engineer by training, he was covering the accident for a national journal. He was also the screenwriter of the movie, The China Syndrome.
At one of the major New York dailies, the managing editor stood up on his desk and shouted, "Who here has seen the China Syndrome?" 3 guys raised their hand. He said, you're going to Harrisburg. So the movie then became a briefing film for the press.
At 11 o'clock, Med-Ed called another press conference. By now, the press corps was growing openly distrustful.
The release that was made yesterday was within the limits that were acceptable, and was... I don't know why we need to tell you each and everything that we do.
Well, why not, Jack? You know, we only live here, and you may kill us here before you're all finished.
Don't you feel a responsibility to 1 million people living around the planet to keep them informed of every last facet of...
The press became very demanding. They were asking more and more intelligent questions, and more specific answers were demanded, and each time Herbine tried to back away from it, and finally the reporters got vicious.
I'm here today to try and ease the level of panic and concern, and tell you...
I remember feeling very angry, and I shouted a question to Jack Herbine, something along the lines of, "You started to melt that thing down, didn't you? Didn't you?" And I guess at that moment I was not a journalist anymore. I lived here, and I was mad. I was angry.
Yeah.
Back at the State House, Thornburg finally heard from Hendry.
All right. Hello, this is Dick Thornburg.
As a precaution, the chairman recommended a limited evacuation order.
Based on advice of the chairman of the NRC, I am advising pregnant women and preschool-aged children to leave the area within a 5-mile radius of the 3 Mile Island facility until further notice.
Thornburg's announcement unleashed the panic he had been trying to avoid. Within days, 140,000 people would flee the area.
People left their jobs, came home, packed their cars and their children. And I remember standing on the corner and cars zipping past me and people hollering out the window, "Watch the town." And I said, well, here I am standing here. I'm in as much danger as they are, and they're leaving town and telling me to watch their homes.
Mrs. Snyder, this is the bus we'll use for her.
Things were starting to get a little hectic.
Yeah, we're going to go for a ride.
We left so quickly on Friday that we basically took ourselves. The moment that's so crystal clear in my mind is driving on the highway, trying to imagine what would happen to this area. All of this beautiful countryside would be destroyed, would be so contaminated that nobody could be there for hundreds of years. I looked as hard as I could at everything and tried to burn it into my mind what everything looked like, because I wasn't going to see it again.
My father wouldn't leave. Dad was thinking of his neighborhood, and he was going to stand guard. We said goodbye, see you soon, to one another. Askamraden, which means stay in touch. I'll let you know. It was probably a few of the most horrible moments of my life. I had to drive away. It was horrible.
At the White House, President Carter was becoming alarmed. For an hour, he'd been trying to call Governor Thornburg, but the phone lines were clogged.
We had an open line. What happened to our open line? How about reestablishing that? It was on 3. Okay? And there, over there, sits our hotline unassembled.
When Carter finally reached the governor, he heard an outpouring of frustration. Thornburg felt let down by both Met Ed and the NRC. He asked the president for someone he could trust. Within hours, Harold Denton arrived in Harrisburg as the president's envoy.
So I agreed to go, but I saw it at that time as I was a fireman, and I was rushing to the scene of a fire.
We were in the governor's darkly paneled office, and we were all sitting there 3 days, and we'd been through everything, and we didn't know what to expect. And we got a call saying Harold Denton is outside in the reception area, and the governor turned to me and said, "Bill, go and bring him in." And I walked down, I opened the door, and he stepped in, and he said, "Hi, I'm Harold Denton." And I said, "Hi, I'm Bill Scranton." But the minute he said, "Hi, I'm Harold Denton," you know, sometimes you have this feeling about people, it just was, this is the right guy.
Well, I'm Harold Denton.
Harold, Dick Thornburg, how are you?
My first look at Harold Denton was on a television set, and he's kind of this slow talking, my recollection is southern sounding kind of guy who will automatically put you at ease and makes you feel more comfortable and safe. And that's kind of how it felt. Well, finally, somebody's here that we can trust.
We've assured ourselves that there is no imminent danger to the public.
That's Harold Denton.
As a result of the way the Corps is being cooled, there are a number of safety
As Denton
systems
calmed
that
fears in
can be activated
Harrisburg,
if necessary.
tensions were growing back at NRC headquarters. Roger Matson, one of the NRC's most experienced engineers, had been analyzing a stream of data from the control room. He was horrified to discover the presence of a hydrogen gas bubble above the core. The bubble could prevent cooling and eventually lead to a meltdown.